and welcome New Zealand. Yeah, that's me.
Yes. Hello. Can you
Hello.
hear me? Good.
Hello. Yeah, there's a bit
So
of echo, but
there is a slight echo there. Let's crack in anyway. Um, Kia ora koutou. Hello from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Um, how awesome is this? This is like we're incredibly excited to be here. It's I can't believe that this is the 10th edition of the conference. It's such a massive achievement. And I have to say the intro video and the score and the music was awesome. Really nice stuff. Um, thanks for having us. First of all, thanks Andy, thanks S2 Hub. Thank you to the whole team of organizers. Thanks to the sponsors, and thank you all for being here. It's an immense effort. So well done. In the interest of time, let's get straight into it. Let's crack into it. Cool.
Thank you for being here. I'm sorry, I cannot speak while you're speaking, so I have to take a break. And thank you for joining us. And I would just say the stage is yours.
Thanks. Cool. Can you guys see the slides by any chance? There we go. Nice. All right, cool. So a bit of an agenda, what we're going to talk through. First of all, we're going to reflect on the year that was. We're going to talk about some of the challenges and the opportunities that we've had. I want to touch on some of the successes that we had over the last year. And we'll talk about some of the rethinking of the strategy that has gone on in the last year. And we'll talk about what's happening right now and what's coming up in the future. So, kia ora, introductions. I'm Stephen Makrogianni, Slack handle Smack. You might hear a few people, you may or may not know me by that name. It's bounced around quite a bit. I'm the solutions director at Silverstripe. I've been using Silverstripe for 8 years, and I've worked at Silverstripe for 5. I'm the manager of the technology lead team. This is my first time speaking at the StripeCon EU, and I'm a little bit nervous, so bear with me if I stutter a bit. I'm going to pass it over to my partner in crime, Max, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, Amberg. So some of you might remember me from last year. So my name is Maxime. Rainville. I'm the CMS squad team lead. I've been using Silverstripe CMS for about 10 years now, and I've been working at Silverstripe on the open source team for going on 6 years now. And this is my 3rd time speaking to you fine folks in Europe. So before we discuss where we think Silverstripe CMS is going in the long term, I would just like to look back to the previous year and what has happened, what has transpired since I joined you guys in Stockholm last year. So in Stockholm, I talk about our then brand new major release policy, and I explain how it would impact Silverstripe CMS over the years to come. I also talked about the upcoming Silverstripe CMS 5 major release. Most importantly, I said that CMS 5 would be dull and boring and would provide a clear upgrade path for people on CMS 4. I also had the pleasure to introduce you to my partners in crime, the CMS squad, that look after Silverstripe CMS on an ongoing basis. And I was also very excited to tell you about the wonderful people that work at Silverstripe that are supporting the CMS squad on a day-to-day basis. And I was also very keen to talk about how we would completely rebuild our decrepit old silverstripe.org site that's still running CMS3 and replace it with a modern, slick, and functional new website so that we could finally have a good showcase for the full value of Silverstripe CMS. So finally, we had a plan and the momentum to get things done right, and all would be well in the Silverstripe CMS world. So fast forward to today in Hamburg. Our silverstripe.org is still running its old decrepit CMS3 implementation. all these wonderful people that I was so proud to talk about last year, a big chunk of them have left the company since then. And by the way, our CEO and two other C-level executive have also left since I met you guys in Stockholm. So that has completely abandoned our strategic direction. So yeah, let's just say that things didn't quite go as well as was hoping last year.
Yeah, that's right. So there has been there's been a bit of natural churn with some of the wider Silverstripe support team. I think the majority of them had been at Silverstripe for a number of years anyway. You know, it was always going to happen. We basically held on to them as long as we could, uh, and you know we're happy for them in their chosen career paths that they've gone on moved on to do. But while it made it challenging for a little bit there. It's always challenging when team members leave. It did give us an opportunity to fill the team with some fresh eyes and some fresh minds, and that's been really beneficial. So we'd like to introduce you to a couple of the new members of the team. Um, let's start off with our new CEO. You may recognize him, you may not. He is an existing Silverstriper. He was our COO who stepped up and was the acting CEO while we were looking for a new one. He did such an amazing job that we basically said, give him the job, and he's managed. He has got a job, and so we're all really happy about that. You know, he's great with numbers. He's German. Which is great because he brings his culture with him to the company. You know, including keeping our fridge stocked with a vast selection of delicious German beers, beers that I didn't even know existed. Yeah, no, it's amazing. He's an excellent dude. You know, and he really believes in the power of open source and the importance of the community. I think that's actually one of the key points. I think it was that I'd like to articulate here. He's right into it. He understands the value. Let's go to Jackson. Now, I think you may know Jackson. Jackson, he's the new executive owner and CDO of Silverstripe. So again, he stepped up. He's filling some sort of two sets of shoes there. He's doing lots of work. He's probably one of the hardest workers I've ever met, and he's literally the perfect person to be leading and to be in an executive owner position of the CMS. He's been part of the Silverstripe CMS community for over 15 years. He's incredibly passionate and incredibly knowledgeable about the CMS, and he provides the CMS squad with an enormous amount of support. He really empowers them to do their best work. So you might recognize a couple of faces there. One of them is mine. I'm really sorry about that. The other one's Jackson. But then I'll go through the list of some of the amazingly talented and passionate people that we have managed to fill the backlog of roles. We've got Maddie, Claire, Myra, Jackson, obviously, myself there, Gina, and Jen. It's basically a superstar team, super powered, and you know, extremely motivated and passionate to provide the multifaceted support that the CMS squad needs. You recognize, yes, you'll recognize these guys. You know, there's been some new members come and go. There's been members leave, there's been members come and join the team. But the core product team, the core product squad, hasn't changed at all. You'll recognize all of their faces. You've got Steve up the back there on the left, and Sabina and Guy up the front, and then obviously Max next to Guy. These guys, they continue to be talented, they continue to be amazing, and they continue to provide an enormous amount of workload for such a small team. And then there's the community, obviously. So the community remains strong. You know, these numbers sort of prove that. You know, there's already over sort of 87,000 sites on Silverstripe CMS. There's 5,000 Slate members. There's 3,500 CMS 3 and 4 modules. There's over 88,000 community subscribers. it really is incredible. It's an awesome community to be a part of. Interestingly, the community has contributed over 25% of the commits for CMS 5.1, which is enormous. If you think about the size of our CMS squad, there's 4 members. It basically means that the community is the equivalent of an FTE. It's or a full-time employee. It basically means that all of you are the 5th member of the CMS squad. So I guess that kind of brings me on to the fact that I want to do a little plug for Guy's lightning talk a little bit later. If you want to know more about contributing to the Silverstripe CMS, or maybe you have contributed before, or you haven't contributed before, you want to know how to do that, definitely catch Guy's talk tomorrow morning. Cool. So we want to talk about some of the successes. So there's been lots of change over the past year, but there's also been a lot to celebrate and a lot of successes that we want to share with you. I'm not going to. There could be hundreds of these, but I'm only allowed to talk about 4. So let's get started. Cool. So Stats NZ 2023 census. This was enormous. We basically had the entire country filling out a form and submitting forms on one day. So I mean, while there's only 4 million or 4.5 million of us, 5 million, whatever it is, it was a monumental achievement, and the Silverstripe CMS powered that. The application itself is actually 2 applications. There's a website which is an info hub, and then there was what they called the Internet Collection System, the ICS. It's not not the smoothest name in the world. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it was immensely effective at collecting an enormous amount of data in a very short period of time. And also, fun fact: this particular application was based off one of our first headless implementations of the CMS several years ago. Another really cool success story is the Unteach Racism website. So there's some really cool stuff, really cool technology involved with this application. It's a single page application. It's a progressive web app. Uses GraphQL for the content layer, GraphQL version 4 for persistent queries, caching reasons, obviously. The reason why we chose a PWA was for equity reasons. Basically, not everyone in New Zealand has the greatest Wi-Fi in the world, but they should still be able to access this really important information. Cyclone appeal. This was a massive one. This was really close to home, obviously, for a lot of Kiwis. It's nationally significant. It was a lot of people were affected by Cyclone Gabriel last year. It was the most significant weather event New Zealand experienced this century. It was enormous. The cleanup is still ongoing, obviously. And we needed to get an application up as fast as we possibly could, so that way we could start to provide support to the people that were affected most. And the team managed to spin up an application with an integration to a payment gateway in only 2 days. So that was built and into production in 2 days. I think they worked over the weekend to be able to do that. And the Silverstripe CMS really made that possible. So what we talked about there was 3 very different, diverse use cases for the Silverstripe CMS that really emphasized the power of that product, of the CMS as a product, as a service. There's a lot more success stories that we could talk about. In the interest of time, we can't go into those, but I could probably talk about them all day. But what it does highlight is that we have a large diversity of customers, from banks to educational institutions, e-commerce applications, information hubs, and nationally significant sites like the Cyclone Appeal. All of these businesses, organizations, and government departments all chose to build with the Silverstripe CMS. It's a bit of a flex that it can service so many different use cases, so many different businesses and organizations with so many different needs. And there's obviously one more massive success that we want to celebrate and want to share with you, and that's the release of Silverstripe Silverstripe 5. It's right there in front of me. It was released in May 2023, obviously last year. And as Max said earlier, it is dull and boring as promised. But there was a reason for that. The team paid down a lot of technical debt. Things like removing deprecated APIs, etc. And the idea was to make the upgrade path from Silverstripe 4 to Silverstripe 5 a whole lot more simple, and they have achieved that. And we've upgraded a couple of our sites. We've currently got about 5 projects on the go in various states of active development, all built with Silverstripe CMS 5. And it's been, while it is dull and boring, what it does do is it provides a really solid base for us to develop new features and new capabilities.
Cool. Thank you, Smack. So with the change of leadership at Silverstripe, we had to do a bit of soul searching. So we still think that the success of Silverstripe CMS is fundamental to the success of Silverstripe, the company. So all projects that we do are built on Silverstripe CMS, and without Silverstripe CMS, Silverstripe is just another boring digital agency in New Zealand. So the key question for us is, how do we line up Silverstripe's business objective with the community's needs in a way that is both sustainable and mutually beneficial? So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our business strategies. So right there at the top, we have care for our people. We also want to operationalize our profitable growth. We want to strengthen our core practices and make them repeatable. We want to create repeatable and composable core services, realize the potential of our CMS, and reduce complexity to make things easy for everyone. So some of those priorities obviously will have like direct impact on the CMS, like realize the potential of our CMS. Other priorities, while not directly connected to the CMS, can help us guide our efforts when we're working on the CMS. So if we take, for example, strengthen our core and repeatable practices, when we hire a new developer, not all of them will have prior experience with Silverstripe CMS, or if they do, they might not be familiar with the best practices we follow. So that's a major problem for us because we hire a lot of Silverstripe developers, and we often have to spend a lot of time upfront upskilling them so they can and take them away from client work. And usually, the upskilling is done by a senior dev that will hold their hands for a couple of days or a week to make sure that they learn the best way of doing things. So when we were looking at addressing that issue is by creating some in-house training to support our new hires, and we could just create that training and call it a day. But if we just spend a little bit more time, we can take that in-house training and make it generic enough so that it can be shared with the rest of the world and the rest of the community. So that means that basically our onboarding benefit can benefit not only us but the community as well. And we can also leverage the wisdom and the experience of the community to sort of make that training even better. In the long run, that might actually increase the pool of Silverstripe developers available not only in Europe but in New Zealand as well. So that means that when new hires come through the door, we might not have to train them at all because somebody else would have trained them already. So that's a perfect example of how Silverstripe, by pursuing its own business objective and things that make sense for us as a company, can actually create value for the community, and in turn, the community can even supercharge that value by engaging in the process. So during last year's keynote, Jackson said that the reason we love Silverstripe CMS is because it's flexible, extensible, and scalable. In our mind, that still remains the core value proposition of Silverstripe CMS. The key question for us is how can we innovate to reinforce that value proposition going forward? And at the same time, we want to provide stability and predictability for our customers and for the community so that they can build with confidence on Silverstripe CMS without having the rug pulled from under them. One aspect I didn't fully appreciate when I became CMS squad lead is that there's a substantial difference between project management and product management. And that product management is very hard. There's a natural tension between innovation and having a sustainable product. So we want to innovate and add new features to make sure that the CMS stays competitive against its competitors. At the same time, we want to provide certainty to developers that depend on the CMS every day. So these two objectives naturally pull against each other. Innovation is very often about breaking things, and commercial support is about making sure things don't break. So we want to be able to communicate what's coming up next while acknowledging that innovation doesn't always go in a straight line. And above all else, we don't want to promise things that we don't think we can deliver. So how do we create the space for innovation while still providing the guarantees that our end users need? So looking back over the last few years, there were many moments when the CMS squad or Silverstripe started off with a theory about how things should work or what people wanted out of the CMS. And we've built completely brand new modules and features around those theories. That what we found over time is that that approach doesn't always provide the best results. So that's how we ended up with modules like campaign admin or CCAN registry that have had like little to no adoption in our own projects or in the community. And historically, the most innovative and useful features that we've developed have come from stealing ideas from the community. So, for example, our current asset admin section was heavily inspired by Kick Assets that was developed for CMS3. Uh, if you just look at the elemental content block module, that came from one of our competitors in New Zealand, DNA Design. And before that, there were like dozens of other content block modules that were trying to solve similar problems, but in slightly different ways. So there's a lot of really smart people that work at Silverstripe, but like they're never going to be as creative as hundreds of community members throwing ideas at the wall and validating their solutions with real life clients. And that's where innovation ultimately comes from, by empowering lots of community members in the periphery to create and tinker with their own projects and then sharing it back with the community. So just looking at the StrikeCon lineup this year, you can see innovation in action. So Purple Spider will be talking about creating and standing modules. Werner's got to talk about how to create better PHP with Rector. Last month, we were privileged at Silverstripe to get a preview of Nicholas' talk about e-commerce in Europe. So by sharing knowledge as a community, that allows us to see like how other people are approaching various problems and to converge into common solutions that we can all share between each other. And last month at Silverstripe, we held our Innovation Week event. So that's basically a week where like everyone at the company can just step back from regular work and start working on cool, crazy ideas that they just always wanted to try. So we started off with over like 75 project ideas. Out of those, 25 were actually worked on during that week. Some of those ideas were that we're exploring included things like front-end editing, refreshing the CMS UI, big commerce integrations, running Silverstripe CMS as a serverless application, automating testing in CMS user documentation, and like, we had like 3 or 4 AI project that wanted to try to integrate AI into the CMS. So some of those ideas may make their way back into the core CMS someday. Most of them probably won't. But all of them allowed us to learn something about what works and what doesn't work. So most importantly, real innovation happen in real projects. The ultimate validation of whatever an idea is working or not is to have actual users trying it out and screaming at you about it. So this allows us to identify which approaches work well and should be converged on, and which ideas don't work and should be abandoned. So this leads to a form of a innovation boom bust cycle. So first you're in an environment where people are trying a bunch of new ideas and experimenting with different concepts. And then eventually you reach the peak where like there's just too many options around and like too many competing approaches. And eventually like people want to streamline and standardize the features into a cohesive offering. So that's when we start paying down technical debt and abandoning concepts that don't make sense. So we just pull back on the bad ideas. That creates a clean slate for us to start exploring new concepts again. So this approach lines well with our new major release policy from last year. So basically, new majors is when we release new majors, that's the point where we sort of look around and pull back on the bad ideas that don't work anymore. And in between new major releases, that's where we look around and say, okay, what's the crazy ideas that we want to try out? Like, what are the sort of cool things the community is doing that we want to sort of maybe look at, maybe building back in the CMS in some way. So that's a lot of I-minded talk about innovation and management. So, but you might be wondering, like, what's actually happening right now? Like, what's coming up in the sort of next month or so in the CMS? Uh, so following the release of CMS 5, we had a review of like our major release policy and how it performed and what we liked about it. So generally speaking, we thought we landed in a pretty good place. So we decided our major release policy didn't really require any substantial updates. Just for those who haven't had a chance to sort of look about the sort of have a deep dive in our major release policy. That basically means that every 2 years we'll be releasing a new major release of Silverstripe CMS. So once a new major is released, the previous major will be supported for another extra 2 years before it goes end of life. Uh, what this means in practice is sometimes next year we'll probably start working on the CMS 6 with the intention of releasing it around April 2025. Uh, Following that, we concluded that we probably needed a similar clarity on the cadence for our minor releases as well. So we decided that going forward, we will do minor releases twice a year. So once in October and once in April. In between those two minor releases, we'll have two security patch windows in January and July. So this basically means that whenever somebody reports a vulnerability to us confidentially, we'll work on a patch and we'll aim to release it either in one of those minor release windows or along with some of our regular minor releases. So people who host Silverstripe projects can basically plan for like having those potential security patches on those time frames. Uh, Also, importantly, next month we'll be releasing the first minor of CMS 5. So we'll be releasing CMS 5.1. So we're actually tagging the release candidate for that on Monday. The beta is already out, so you can install that and play with it if you want. One of the cool new features that we'll be shipping in CMS 5.1 is we're introducing a new eager loading API. So basically, whenever you need to load a list of data objects and their relation, instead of having to loop through all the data objects and then doing a follow-up query for each one to load its relations, you'll be able to load both of those in one query and basically save a lot of database queries in one go. So that's a new API you can use to optimize your websites and get better performance. And while looking around for a lot of while working on the ORM and on eager loading, we found a lot of scope for improving performance. So there should be a lot of general improvements that just happens in the background without you having to do anything. We also got a really cool community contributions from Le Koala, which was an awesome community member. He added the ability to anonymize IP addresses in Session Manager. So I'm sure that's a lot of thing. That's a cool topic that people who have to deal with GDPR compliance will be happy to have available in Silverstripe CMS. A topic that may be a bit more removed. So basically, we spent a lot of time over the last few months improving our CI/CD pipeline and implementing DevOps practices. So this may seem like a somewhat austere topic, but it has a lot of positive impact downstream for the community. So now when you patch a bug in CMS in the CMS, that patch will automatically get merged up to later releases of Silverstripe CMS. And also it will get auto tagged. So that means that once the fix is merged and the build goes green, that will automatically get released as a patch release without anybody having to do anything. And your PR will be available to install on your projects right away. So what this means in practice is that you as a community member or us as CMS Squad members can go and do a PR for CMS4. Once the PR get merged and the build goes green, it will automatically get released so people can install it right away. And then that will get merged up to CMS5. And then once that build on CMS5 goes green, it will get merged up right away. So that basically so the main value of this is that that frees up a lot of time from our dev team because we don't have to spend time shipping and shuffling bits around. And that also considerably reduces our turnaround for patching bugs and shipping the actual patch. So this means that our team can spend less time worrying about boring releasing code and actually doing more work for like patching bugs or adding new features. For those of you who haven't jumped headfirst into CMS 5, don't worry. We're still looking after CMS 4 for a while still. Since we released CMS 5 in May, we've actually shipped 200 commits for CMS 4, so we're still looking actively after it. An important thing to note is that somewhere around April 2024, where CMS 4 will start stepping back from CMS 4 a little bit. So from that point onwards, we'll only be patching security issues, high impact security issues for CMS 4, and we'll stop backporting bugs. But until then, basically, like every time we sort of look at fixing a bug, we'll see, does this affect CMS 4? And we'll look at trying to backport that bug into CMS 4 until that point. So yeah, you still have you still have a year and a half before CMS 4 goes end of life. But I would just like to say that the CMS 5 waters are warm, so now's the perfect time to make the plunge and start looking at upgrading your sites or building your new sites into CMS 5. So that's what's happening over the next months or so. But let's cast our eye a little bit further afield. So our beloved strategy and design team has put together a quick showcase to tease some ideas that they're currently playing with. So while the CMS squad might be looking after the code of the CMS day to day, everyone at Silverstripe is very passionate about the CMS, and many other teams contribute in multiple ways, not just in like actually doing code for it. So some of the things they are well, some of the things the various teams at Silverstripe are looking at includes like updating the demo to better showcase Silverstripe CMS, what Silverstripe CMS can do, revamping lessons for beginner developers, and even like refreshing and modernizing the CMS UI. And in that video, you may have noticed a couple sneaky new logos there. So this new logo will be shipping in CMS 5.1. So this is normally the point where like we would have a designer like provide some fancy rationale for why this new uplifting logo is coming along. But basically, we just wanted to better differentiate Silverstripe the company from Silverstripe the CMS. So basically, like when we show a logo, you know, like what we're talking about essentially. So, like I mentioned, the logo will be available. It will be in CMS 5.1, but it will also start rolling across our websites and various like web presence over the next month or so. And speaking of our website, we're rebuilding silverstripe.org for real this time. There's actual dev time booking for it to happen, and we have some pretty markups as you can see there that are all ready to go. The current state of silverstripe.org is such that basically like instead of trying to completely replicate all the features that are currently on silverstripe.org, we'll just be looking at doing an MVP version of the site as soon as possible and get that out there. And like as we sort of progress along, we'll try to sort of like ship new features as they become available. So we'll really adopt a really agile way of shipping and managing that project. So last year we did collect a lot of feedback from attendees at StripeCon 2022, and we took a lot of that feedback and fed it back into the design process and to the sort of discovery process of the site. So thank you very much to all of you for taking part of this. And if you're keen to keep providing feedback or like join the team or play with the beta of the site or play with early versions of the site, just flick an email to community@silverstripe.org and we'll collect your detail. And once the project's in full swing, we'll reach out and you'll get sneak peeks of what the site will look like, and you'll be able to provide some input in there to make sure that the site meets the need of the community. The next thing we're looking at is producing an actual roadmap for what features are coming up in Silverstripe CMS. So now that's probably the #1 request I've been getting over the years from the community and from developers and from our own sales team. So everyone wants to know what's coming up next and when it's coming. Honestly, I've been resisting. We've been resisting publishing a formal roadmap anywhere. Partially, that's just because we honestly didn't quite know what was coming up next a lot of the time. So since last year's TriCon, we've pretty much just had our heads down, just focusing on delivering CMS 5. And once we finally like kicked CMS 5 out the door in May, we started looking around and taking a step back. So like trying to figure out like what's our actual product strategy going to be going forward. How does how does that line up with Silverstripe's other broader strategies, and like where does the CMS fit into this more widely? The other concerns we've had is that commitments are scary. So like over the years, every time we were looking at delivering a specific feature, there was always something that would come out of the woodwork and that would get in the way of us building that and meeting our timeframes. So basically, we don't want to promise things to build things and then have people plan on these things being available, only to us like miss our deadline or not be able to deliver it the way people were expecting it. So the model we've decided to try out is to give a working list of priorities essentially. So what we're going to do going forward is we're just going to provide a list of features and like prioritize them based on our whatever the current priority is. And as probably a lot of you knows, priorities will change over time. So basically, if an item is really high up on the list, you can probably expect that we'll be working on this very reasonably quickly, and we'll put some effort on it. Uh, and if an item is a bit lower down the list, you can expect that maybe it will move around, maybe it will drop off completely, maybe some items will take its place or jump, leapfrog it, and so on. So that basically that roadmap will be flexible and change over time. What we're not going to go about is say like this feature will be delivered this quarter exactly, and then the next quarter we'll be working on this thing and so on. So we're not going to try to sort of provide you like a very like defined roadmap in that sense. So these are the priorities we are looking at right now, and so this is the roadmap as it stands today. Like I said, it may change over time. So right now, our top priority is implementing a search service. So this is mostly driven by our desire to launch a search offering on Silverstripe Cloud. But we also want to be delivering. We also want to provide this in a generic way, so that you community members can go in there and provide their own implementation and not solely rely on our own commercial one. The next item on the list there is shipping a link management system. So this is a good example where the wisdom of crowd approach I was describing earlier sort of feed into the process. So there's been a few modules there. There's been a few modules for Silverstripe CMS over the years that allowed you to manage links. And we have our own proof of concept modules that many of our own bespoke teams are using on many projects. So we feel that we've had a lot of validation of the approach and that we should be able to ship something with some degree of formal support going forward. Uh, so that's something that you can expect over the next few releases. As I mentioned, lower items on the list are less certain and may end up dropping off completely. And quite frankly, we're still figuring out a lot of them as of today. So I won't be like going through the full list there, and they will like I said, they will move around quite a bit over the future. So our intention is to once the new .org has been shipped, our intention is to document this roadmap and like so that people can actually access it and see like if their favorite project is there, or like if their project is going up and down, and provide feedback on what they think we should be working on next. And finally, on the horizon, we have CMS 6. Now, don't worry, don't panic. CMS 6 is we're not in the work yet, so you don't have to worry about starting to plan your CMS 6 upgrade quite yet. But once we are done up, like for CMS 5, once we were done upgrading all the dependencies and removing all the deprecated code, we looked around and there was basically no time left to do any other substantial changes. Fortunately for CMS 6, we should have more lead time, so that will give us an opportunity to sort of be a bit more purposeful and to and be a little bit more critical when choosing what goes into CMS 6 and what doesn't, and like basically have a more rigorous process for deciding that. So our thinking right now is around trying to introduce more modularity to the CMS, maybe swap out some low value components with more generic PHP libraries so we can reduce our maintenance burden. And I have a I have a more thorough review of the modules we currently support, and probably drop a few of those that are like not providing value for us or the community. So at this stage, we're looking at starting formal work for CMS 6 probably around April next year, and obviously looking to ship a new CMS 6 version sometimes in 2025. And I will end back to Smack for the conclusion.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Cool. So this is the Silverstripe team. You may not realize how many of us there are, but just have a look at all those happy faces. You can't fake that enthusiasm, eh? So over the last year, not everything went the way we had expected to. We had people leaving, we had people coming. Some big positions, big position changes. But despite all that, we had a lot of success. We've got an awesome new team who are passionate about about Silverstripe and the Silverstripe CMS. We've built some really impactful applications for a diverse range of customers. We now have there's a big one. Yeah, we now have a priority development roadmap. Yay! That includes me. I'm very happy about that. We've delivered CMS 5, and we're looking to the future with CMS 6. The Silverstripe CMS continues to be a flexible, extensible, and scalable platform, which we should all be building on. We at Silverstripe are extremely passionate and immensely optimistic about the CMS and its future. We're going to continue to use it, to grow it, to develop it, and we would love for you, the community, to contribute to its growth as well. Nahi mihi, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't expect you to close this fast. Thank you very much.
Very efficient.
I'm sorry, we have a bit technical problems when you are on screen and I am on screen. So we will keep this short, and we will have the questions to Max and Smack on on the web app. In the web app, there's a channel for that, and they will read it. And Max will stay online because he has another talk after lunch, and probably he can answer some of the questions there. And I just wanted to tell you that we produced some merch with the new logo. I'm also putting them in the price box, and they can also be won tonight. Be prepared. So thank you to you guys, and we see you later with Max. Thank you. We are still in time. I'm overwhelmed, and we will take a short break.